That would record. And so take it away, and we'd love to hear a little bit about your experience.
Hi, everyone, and I really want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you today.
Is there a way, we're hearing you kind of softly. I don't know if there's a way for you to move slightly closer to your microphone.
I don't want you to see up my nose, but okay, we'll try.
That's actually better. Just
that
like
better?
that is better. Yeah, and
Okay.
our view of you is perfect. We get your nose just as we should see it.
I really, really want to thank everybody for letting me be here today to share my story. And Ed, I'm a writer also, and I agree with you. The stack gets bigger and bigger. But I used to be a workaholic. I was a highly motivated and energetic career person. My positions included training, marketing, human resources, vice president, director of information systems, and vice president at a bank. I had a knack for almost anything computer programming and for bringing projects from conception to triumph. I was successful, and most of our financial decisions were based on my income. In addition to working an average of 65 hours per week, I was involved in many areas of my community and organized most of our family gatherings. I maintained my large home and flower and vegetable gardens. My husband and I were assistant scuba instructors and taught weekly classes. We loved to travel. We visited 18 countries and made 4 trips to South Africa. To maintain our muscles for scuba, we worked out on our gym set, possibly 4 times a week, and tried to fit in biking and hiking in our schedule when possible. I was living my dream. Great career, lots of community involvement, plenty of social interaction, and an abundance of family events. And a fair amount of travel and a healthy income. Slowly, things started to change. Dementia is not just about memory. When I was around 50 years old, I started noticing some small changes in my personality, concentration, memory, and executive abilities. Then I started having trouble with basic math. Yes, this is a person that was vice president of a bank, and I was having trouble with math. Even when I used Excel or a calculator, my figures were just constantly wrong. I would get lost driving in areas that I knew well, and traffic was really stressing me out. I was angry when I was in traffic. Then I began forgetting conversations, and I had to think through processes that were once second nature to me. Although I've always been a positive thinker and motivator, I became increasingly agitated by people and events. Maintaining my happy, positive disposition was becoming more of a challenge. Then simple tasks that I never thought about seemed confusing. Once I wore the same suit to work 2 days in a row, even though I owned 28 designer suits. I would sometimes trip and fall for no reason. As I realized I was making mistakes at work and at home, I kept finding ways to cover it up. I blamed it on stress and working too much. Things continued to decline. And when I was 55, my husband Roy began to question why I was acting so different. He noticed my irritability, my confusion, and my lack of enthusiasm. When I began repeating myself, Roy became concerned and insisted I find out why. After much testing and 5 doctors, the neurologist informed us that he was only confirming what the other 4 doctors would not diagnose because of my age. I had early onset Alzheimer's and FTD, which is frontotemporal degeneration. I had no clue what FTD was, but I knew the A word, and I was petrified. What about my work? With a snicker, he turned to Roy, not me, and said, "You need to focus on final preparations. Call an elder care attorney spend time with your family and come back in 6 months to see how far she's progressed. That was 5 years ago. That day, I thought my world had fallen apart. We were petrified. I feared I was handed a death sentence. The diagnosis and the loss of my income was overwhelming, and I felt like a freak. I was only 55. I always thought it would be nice to stay at home and have time to go through that things to do list that we never get to. But soon I felt restless and bored and just empty. I was used to working and being challenged and being on the go. And now I sat at home alone. I began to wonder why I was even alive. What was my purpose here on earth? After much research, I came across a virtual group, a virtual memory group, just for people living with dementia, called Virtual Memory Cafe. When I joined the first Zoom meeting, I found that in spite of what the doctors had suggested, I was not the only person in the world under 65 with dementia. And I met some wonderful friends. Through them, I began to learn that I could actually live with dementia. And together we laughed, we cried, we talked about strategies to survive our dementia journey and our challenges. As I became more confident in my abilities that I still had, I realized I do have a lot I can still offer the world. I started writing a blog. It's called dementiadays.com. I started getting involved in dementia groups. I started mentoring other people newly diagnosed that felt like they had also been handed a death sentence. I started speaking to groups and advocating about dementia. Yes, our life has changed drastically. Our dreams, our plans, and our finances have changed. Much of our retirement fund that we thought we'd be using to do trips is now used for expenses. I get confused and disoriented, and often I have to use a walker. And yet I'm living and I'm thriving, and I'm making a big difference in the dementia world. I learned that I can live a beneficial life with purpose and joy. My expectations have changed from an attitude of I'm dying with dementia to I'm living with dementia, from being disabled to being differently abled. My husband and I focus on my abilities and find strategies to overcome the challenges from my inabilities. Just to give you an idea, since my diagnosis, I do many things differently than I did before, but I still do many things. I went skydiving, and I'm anxious to go again. I loved it. I parasailed off Table Mountain in South Africa, ziplining in Alaska, ATVing in Wyoming, cavern kayaking in Wisconsin. Since my diagnosis, we've traveled to 32 states in our motorhome. I still garden, but sometimes I think the weeds are flowers and the flowers are weeds, and it doesn't always look so good. As long as they look pretty, though, that's okay. I've been scuba diving in Bonaire twice. As a safety precaution, I always have 2 dive buddies rather than 1. And Roy has to put together my equipment because I don't always remember how to do it right. During the past 4 years, I've served as a dementia advocate in many ways, including media presentations or articles and documentaries, including New York Times, PBS, AARP, and South Africa News. I'm an international speaker. I was a speaker on a dementia cruise. I've organized over 300 dementia discussions. I've held over 450 mentoring sessions. I serve on the DAA advisory board and the board of directors. I was selected as a panelist for the 2020 National Institute on Aging Dementia Summit, and much more. I currently manage 3 weekly virtual discussion groups and a volunteer support team. Dementia does not define who I am. It is merely a small part of the many facets of my life. affecting decisions and changes in how I live. I am Laurie Scherrer. I am a wife, a writer, a scuba diver, an educator, and an advocate. I'm a traveler and a speaker. Oh, and I'm also living with dementia. People that live with dementia should not be reduced to a simple diagnostic label pronounced by a doctor, nor should they be stigmatized by a society that sees the diagnosis rather than the individual abilities and identities. Living with dementia does not automatically equal total memory loss, inability to make our own decisions, nor undeserving of living an independent life enriched with purpose, beauty, and fulfillment. We are not defined solely by a label of dementia. As with most people, we are the cultivation of our upbringing, culture, spiritual fulfillment, lived experiences, accomplishments, failures, and our many, many challenges. My motto is, I don't want just to survive. I want to thrive. Dementia is generally a slow process. I have friends who have been living a beneficial life in spite of their dementia for over 20 years. If you learn anything from me today, I hope it is to change your view of dementia. Vision people living with dementia and thriving, not dying. See them for all their abilities, not their disabilities. Even if their biggest accomplishment is putting on a big smile, that's worthy of praise. Your attitude and theirs makes a difference. Thank you for letting me share with you today.
Oh, Laurie, thank you so much.